So this is the shim that came out, and I'm going to learn from my mistakes of doing the rear housing, which I put no shim back in. But this is 2.57, this is the shim kit, and I'm going to go with something around 2mm to get me started, because before I had too much lateral movement and I got a really poor reading from my DTI. So I'll go for about 2mm shim. I'll go through these and find one that's suitable, and then put the shim in with a bearing track into here, and then we'll get this thing hopefully set up. Right, I've got a 1.5mm shim. That'll have to do to get me close, and then I've got it's the biggest I've got, excluding the actual. That one that came off, it looks as though it's made up of loads of different ones. Looks to be about 5 or 6 smaller ones. I don't know what's going on with that. Might have a look later on, but I may need it, so be careful with that. So put the shim in and make sure he's the right way around. This one's a bit easier for access at least, so hopefully we'll get that tapped in. Oh, look at that, do that being higher. Right, I'm not happy I can't get the hammer in properly, but let's see if this guy, I've got it started, let's see if I can drift it in. Right, so I've got him knocked in. It's quite tight, that one. It's quite hard to get a swing with your hammer on it. I ended up using the old equivalent race to tap him in. He's in now, so we'll get this hooked up onto the main casing with a differential in, and we'll get a DTI reading from it and see what sort of shimming I really need. Note the orientation of this thing. It slides in with the gearing, and the bottom bearing, the one closest to the edge, goes in first. Hopefully. Just watch it, all this stuff is so heavy. This case still needs a secondary clean up on it. I'm not happy with it. There we go, that's him on. Next up, case. I'm using sealant once again, so no gasket required or anything at this time. If you're using the gasket, you would need to put it on at this time so you can get a proper reading. So let's get this orientated. Right, casing on, and then I have to find some slave bolts from somewhere. I'm not entirely sure. There are some locating pins on this. Come on. Just don't force it. Right, there we go. Got a couple of slave bolts in there, and we'll get a reading of this thing. Right, 25 Newton meters. So if we're looking here, if I can grab hold of it properly, probably hear it more than see it. Plenty of movement going on there. So we need to take that slop out. And at about 0.05 preload as well, which is pretty much just tensioning up the bearings effectively. I've got it wedged up somewhat precariously. I'm going to probably have to put it on the floor because I'm really nervous of this thing going on the floor now. It's got so much weight behind it. I'll see if I can get a reading doing it this way. Now, as you'll notice, there's no way you can get the DTI down into this area to pick up a reading because it's that low. But what you do, all you do is use your output shaft, slide him in so that it gets you over to that height out of the casing, so I can set the DTI up onto that, which I'll do now. I'm not sure where I'm going to position it. It's all a bit wobbly, precarious at the moment. That's the DTI set up. Not the best location in the world. However, I'm going to have to try and jiggle this. Only I could buy a DTI gauge that broke after the first outing. Face fell off it. Now that needle's bent. Apart from that, it's absolutely perfect. Oh look, I had a nightmare with this last time. Alright, let's give it a go, see if I can get a reading of sorts. It's doing its old tricks again. Every time I do it, I have to take it about 20,005 readings from this thing approximately, and that's no exaggeration. Let's get a working average. So I'm getting a reading of about 0.63, so plus 0.05 for the preload, so on another 0.68 millimeters onto the current shim that I've got. So let's get this thing taken apart and then we'll get it shimmed back up. Get these two out. I'm most definitely going to put this on the floor now. It's just getting to that point where I feel as though it's going to end in a disaster on the floor. There we go. That's annoying. You can see where you damage the shim where you punch it out. I'll have to line it up with the gap again. That's annoying, and that's exactly why I left the shim out of the other one when I set it up. But it is what it is. Let's go do some measuring. It comes out at 208. And that's pretty much nigh on, bang on, almost, nearly. It depends where you measure. It varies that much around the circumference of it. So it's a best of a bad job, but I think this will be close. I'm quite happy with what I've got selected. Unfortunately, it's 4 shims as well. It's the best I can do with what I had available. And I've done it also, I made it that way because the one that I took out was slightly damaged. I didn't really want to use that. I'd rather use a new one. So that's what I've gone with. Yet again, let's put the big one on the back side in case I have to bang that back out again. Let's get him in. That's not ideal. Don't want to be doing this too many times, that's the worry. Picked up a little. Gonna have to make use of the leg tool. I haven't quite got it started yet, so I'm just being a bit tentative. Put casing back on for a test fit prior to fitting the other bearing, which I'd forgotten about. And there's no movement there whatsoever. Turns freely. It's a bit crunchy because of no oil at the moment. No, that's smooth, that. I like that a lot. Let me just check for lift with the pry bar. Here we go, third time lucky. I have to re-shim it again. Oh, it's annoying. But now, if I try and lift that, absolutely no movement at all. And it turns over pretty smooth. And that's what you're looking for. Finally, God. I need to add that to my list of things I don't like, shimming.